Final warning. The next round of U.S.-Iran nuclear talks could be the last chance to prevent catastrophic war. Final round. Not another session. Not continued dialogue. This is it. Either Iran accepts Trump's demands completely, or American warships positioned 200 kilometers from Iranian coast unleash 800 daily strikes obliterating the Islamic Republic's nuclear facilities, missile arsenals, and regime infrastructure within days. And Ayatollah Khamenei just declared that uranium enrichment is absolutely non-negotiable, drawing the reddest of red lines that directly contradicts Trump's core demand for complete nuclear program elimination. Non-negotiable. That word ends diplomacy and begins military operations. Trump has warships ready. Khamenei refuses surrender. And final round of talks scheduled for next week determines whether this crisis resolves peacefully or explodes into regional war that nobody can control once American bombs start falling. Good evening and welcome to my channel. I'm going to reveal why the upcoming talks represent the absolute last chance for diplomacy, how American military is positioned for immediate execution if talks fail, and why Khamenei's non-negotiable stance on enrichment makes war practically inevitable. Final round means no more extensions, no more delays, no more buying time. Trump has run out of patience, American military has completed positioning, Israeli pressure is overwhelming, and political timeline that Senator Graham described as weeks, not months, is approaching its conclusion. Let me explain what happens in these final talks, and why failure triggers immediate military action that changes Middle East forever. Negotiations are entering what diplomats are calling the final round. This terminology is deliberate and significant. Final round means this is last scheduled diplomatic engagement before decision point about military action. Previous rounds explored possibilities, found some common ground, identified major gaps, but achieved no breakthrough that prevents military confrontation. Now comes final attempt where both sides must make ultimate decisions about whether peace is possible. Iran has prepared counterproposal that officials say will be presented in coming days. This proposal reportedly includes willingness to dilute uranium stockpile, delay enrichment activities, and accept enhanced international oversight. These are significant concessions that Iran refused to make for years. Diluting uranium means reducing purity from current 60% toward lower levels that cannot support weapons production. This moves Iran further from nuclear capability. Delaying enrichment means halting installation of new centrifuges and potentially reducing operational capacity at existing facilities. This prevents program expansion while negotiations continue. Enhanced oversight means allowing IAEA inspectors more access, more frequency, and more intrusive monitoring than previous agreements permitted. This provides confidence that Iran isn't cheating. Why is Iran suddenly offering concessions they previously called violations of sovereignty? Because they see American warships 200 kilometers away. They know Trump is serious this time. They understand military option is not bluff, but operational reality hours from execution. But here's the critical problem. While Iran offers partial concessions, Khamenei simultaneously declares that uranium enrichment itself is non-negotiable sovereign right, that no amount of American pressure will force Iran to surrender. Non-negotiable is diplomatic language, meaning this issue is off the table completely. Iran will not discuss eliminating enrichment capability. Iran will not accept zero enrichment demands. Iran considers this fundamental red line that American military threats cannot cross. This creates impossible contradiction. Iran offers to limit enrichment while insisting enrichment right is non-negotiable. They'll reduce levels, accept monitoring, delay expansion, but they absolutely will not eliminate enrichment capacity completely. Trump's position is equally absolute. Complete nuclear program elimination, zero enrichment capability, all uranium shipped out, facilities dismantled or converted to non-nuclear uses, no halfway measures. So final round features two completely incompatible positions. Iran's non-negotiable enrichment right versus Trump's non-negotiable elimination demand. How do you bridge gap when both sides declare their positions are absolute? You don't. That's why final round will likely fail. And failure triggers military option that American forces are positioned to execute immediately. American warships are not conducting deterrence posture. They're in attack configuration ready for immediate combat operations. Two supercarriers USS Ford and USS Abraham Lincoln provide combined 140 combat aircraft. 800 daily strike capacity means sustained multi-week campaign. Land-based aircraft at regional facilities add additional strike capability. B-2 bombers from Diego Garcia can hit deeply buried targets with bunker-buster munitions. Tomahawk cruise missiles from surface ships and submarines provide standoff strike options. This is overwhelming force positioned at 200 kilometers from Iranian targets. That's point-blank range in modern warfare. Iranian air defenses would have only minutes warning before American aircraft arrive over target areas. And critically, personnel are being evacuated from vulnerable positions. U.S. forces relocating from Qatar prove Pentagon expects Iranian retaliation and is moving non-essential personnel out of harm's way before strikes begin. You don't evacuate unless attack is imminent. Qatar hosts Al Udeid Air Base with thousands of American military personnel. Moving them signals that decision-makers expect Iranian missiles to target this facility when American strikes commence. So American military positioning, force concentration, evacuation activities, and political statements all point toward imminent military action if final round talks fail to produce Iranian capitulation. But Khamenei's non-negotiable enrichment declaration proves capitulation is not coming. Supreme Leader has drawn line he will not cross regardless of military threats. This means talks are essentially diplomatic theater before inevitable military confrontation. Why would Khamenei declare enrichment non-negotiable if he wants to avoid war? Because his domestic political survival depends on not appearing to surrender to American pressure. Iranian hardliners would view complete enrichment elimination as humiliating capitulation that validates decades of American pressure. Khamenei's legitimacy rests on resistance to Western imperialism. Surrendering nuclear program under military duress would destroy that legitimacy and potentially trigger internal challenge to his authority. So Khamenei calculates that maintaining enrichment capability and accepting military strikes is less dangerous to his personal power than eliminating enrichment and facing domestic backlash from hardliners who kept revolution alive specifically to resist American demands. This is Khamenei choosing regime survival over avoiding war. Better to be bombed while resisting than to surrender and face internal coup from Revolutionary Guard factions viewing capitulation as betrayal. But this calculation assumes Iran can survive American military campaign. Khamenei believes Russian and Chinese support, Iranian missile retaliation, proxy network activation, and asymmetric tactics will impose sufficient costs that Trump terminates campaign before achieving complete destruction. Iranian strategy is absorb opening strikes, launch massive retaliation against U.S. bases and Israeli cities, activate Hezbollah and other proxies, conduct cyber attacks, threaten oil supplies, and basically create so much chaos that Trump decides partial degradation is acceptable outcome rather than continuing campaign until complete victory. This strategy worked during June's 12-day war when Trump declared end after limited strikes achieved nuclear facility destruction. Iran hopes for repeat where American campaign begins, Iran retaliates, costs mount, and Trump accepts limited success rather than pursuing regime change that prolonged war would require. But Trump's current positioning suggests different calculation this time. 800 daily strikes means sustained campaign, not limited operation. 2 carriers means ability to rotate sorties, maintaining pressure indefinitely. Evacuation of personnel means accepting that retaliation will occur, but not allowing it to deter operations. And Netanyahu's pressure for comprehensive campaign means Israel is pushing Trump beyond limited strikes towards sustained operation that eliminates Iranian threat permanently rather than temporarily. This creates collision course where Khamenei's non-negotiable enrichment meets Trump's non-negotiable elimination demand, and final round talks expose gap that military force must resolve because diplomacy cannot. Meanwhile, fresh protests continue inside Iran despite brutal crackdown that killed thousands. Students are still chanting, "Pahlavi will return," and raising lion and sun flags at universities. 40-day memorials for January massacre victims are turning into new protest events. Regime's fear is that American strikes weaken government, creating opportunity for protesters to overthrow system. That's why IRGC commanders are meeting in hospitals preparing for scenario where they fight external American attack and internal revolution simultaneously. Khamenei has appointed Ali Larijani to ensure Islamic Republic endures any military attacks and targeted killings. Larijani is now shadow leader controlling crackdown, military preparations, and nuclear negotiations while Khamenei hides in bunker seclusion. This succession arrangement proves Khamenei expects to be targeted for assassination and wants regime to survive his death. You don't hand power to subordinate unless you believe you might not survive to govern yourself. Intelligence indicates Khamenei has prepared escape routes to Russia or China if regime faces imminent collapse. Billions transferred to foreign banks. Family members evacuated to safety. Multiple safe houses for constant movement preventing targeting. This is not confident leader expecting to deter American attack. This is terrified dictator preparing for worst-case scenarios where he gets killed, regime collapses, or both happen simultaneously. And yet Khamenei still declares enrichment non-negotiable. Why maintain hardline position if you're preparing for catastrophic outcomes? Because appearing weak invites attack, while appearing strong might deter it. Khamenei is gambling that declaring enrichment non-negotiable demonstrates Iranian resolve that makes Trump hesitate before ordering strikes. If Iran appears willing to fight to defend enrichment rights, maybe Trump concludes costs exceed benefits. But this strategy has fatal flaw. Trump doesn't bluff. When he positions overwhelming military force and issues ultimatums, he follows through. Venezuela proved this. Maduro operations succeeded despite predictions of failure. Trump calculated risks, decided benefits, justified them, and executed operation that captured Venezuelan president. Iran is much more dangerous than Venezuela. But Trump's pattern is clear. When he decides military action is necessary, he proceeds regardless of risks that cautious advisors emphasize. And current positioning proves Trump has decided you don't surge 2 supercarriers, position 800 daily strike capability, evacuate vulnerable personnel, and set weeks, not months, timeline unless you're committed to military option. Trump is reportedly curious why Iran hasn't capitulated under overwhelming pressure. This reveals his mindset. He believes American military superiority should have forced Iranian surrender by now. The fact they're still resisting confuses him and makes him more likely to use force. Trump's business negotiation background assumes that when you have overwhelming leverage, opponent folds. He's applied maximum military pressure expecting Iranian capitulation. Khamenei's non-negotiable enrichment declaration proves capitulation isn't coming. So Trump faces choice. Accept that Iran maintains some enrichment capability in negotiated agreement, or use military force eliminating enrichment facilities entirely. His statements and force positioning indicate he's chosen the second option. Final round talks will expose this reality. Iran offers partial concessions, maintaining enrichment rights. Trump demands complete elimination. Gap proves unbridgeable. Talks fail. Military option activates. Timing is critical. Talks scheduled for next week means failure becomes apparent within days. Senator Graham's weeks, not months timeline means military action follows diplomatic failure very quickly, possibly within same week. American military doesn't maintain 800 daily strike capability indefinitely. Carriers need to either execute operations or return to normal deployment cycles. Sustained alert status is expensive and exhausting. You can't hold this posture for months. So final round talks carry enormous urgency. Either breakthrough happens immediately or military action begins before force posture degrades through time and exhaustion. Iranian negotiators understand this timeline. That's why they're preparing counterproposal for immediate presentation. They know this is last chance to prevent war through diplomatic concessions. But Khamenei's non-negotiable enrichment declaration undermines their efforts. How can negotiators offer meaningful concessions when Supreme Leader publicly declares core issue is off limits? This reveals internal Iranian debate between pragmatists who want deal-avoiding war and hardliners who refuse surrender under pressure. Khamenei appears to side with hardliners by declaring enrichment non-negotiable, even while allowing negotiators to offer partial concessions. This mixed messaging confuses situation, but ultimately Khamenei's declaration is what matters. Supreme Leader sets policy. Negotiators implement. If enrichment is non-negotiable per Khamenei, then negotiators cannot offer elimination regardless of American demands. European allies are watching nervously. Sofia airport closure proves European governments expect American strikes to trigger Iranian retaliation reaching their territory. Other capitals are preparing similar protective measures. China warns against military adventurism. Russia positions forces supporting Iran. International community urges restraint. But none of this stops American military machine positioned for execution when final round talks fail. Oil markets are pricing increased war risk, prices rising in anticipation of potential Strait of Hormuz disruption, strategic reserves being prepared for release if Iranian actions spike prices dangerously. Global economy holds its breath waiting to see if final round talks produce miracle that prevents war or confirm inevitable collision between irreconcilable positions. Israeli government is coordinating strike planning assuming talks fail. Netanyahu wants comprehensive campaign eliminating all Iranian threats, not just nuclear facilities. Israeli bases on high alert expecting massive Iranian and Hezbollah retaliation. Everything is ready. Forces positioned. Targets identified. Weapons loaded. Evacuation completed. Political decision pending. Only final round talks stand between current tense peace and catastrophic war. And Khamenei's non-negotiable enrichment declaration proves talks will fail. Iran won't surrender core capability Trump demands eliminated. Trump won't accept partial measures Iran offers. Final round exposes unbridgeable gap. Diplomacy exhausted, military option activated. Within days or weeks of talks failing, American warships 200 kilometers away unleash 800 daily strikes beginning campaign that changes everything. Khamenei warns enrichment is non-negotiable. Trump demands complete elimination. Final round cannot bridge this gap. And failure triggers military action both sides have prepared for but hoped to avoid. The talks begin next week. The warships are ready. The declaration is made. And the countdown to war continues unless miracle produces breakthrough that current positions make impossible. Final round, non-negotiable demands, ready warships, and inevitable collision approaching fast.